Welcome back. Small talk is exhausting as hell. This is the show where we dive into random various subjects. Um, my own personal deep dive, right? And I haven't done one of these in a while. Been really kind of slacking. Life has been different. Life is very different right now. Um, yeah, life is very different. That's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, really trying to get myself back into the, content creation, uh, habit. And just going through a lot of personal growth, a lot of personal understandings, right? Trying to figure out more of what's going on up in here. Trying to get to the root of some behaviors, some habits. A lot has changed just in the past year, and I use this past year as kind of like a bit of a barometer because literally a year ago I started a new job, right? Started a new job, and just complete change of habit, change of life from the previous 5 years, right? Which is how long I was at my previous job, and like I said, lots of changes. Personal note, my schedule, my thought process, and it's a lot of shit. It's a lot of changes, right? And lately I've been really diving into the thought of purpose. You hear all the time, you gotta find your purpose. You gotta have a purpose, be on your purpose. Depending on what corner of YouTube you're on, you'll hear a lot of people screaming about being on your purpose, right? If you've read or listened to The Way of the Superior Man, they talk about that. And just a lot of people in general, they talk a lot about you know about having a purpose. And that's something I've really been, like I said, diving into for myself is my own purpose, um, what it is I've been sent here to do. And there's a lot of subcategories of thoughts around that central thought or idea, right? And like what exactly does it mean to have a purpose? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it that you are basically, like, what do you put on this earth to do? What are you here for, right? And trying to gain the perspective that would allow me to see exactly what my purpose is. So again, just thinking about different criteria when it comes to purpose. And I'll get to the topic, the actual title of this show in a minute, because it all connects, it all correlates. So when you talk about purpose, right? Again, it's like, what do you put on this earth to do? In what areas are you the most useful to people, right? Useful in a fulfilling way. because there's ways to, um, and I hesitate using the word useful, right? I hesitate using the word useful because in many ways, we can be useful to other people, but at the same time, it's in ways that aren't necessarily fulfilling for us, right? We can be useful in ways that doesn't feel like we're actually contributing. We're just being useful. Most people call it being used, right? Most people understand, what it feels like to be used. But being useful, right? There's a fine line. There's a very fine line between, feeling useful to the point where you feel like you have a purpose, you're contributing, and useful to the point where, it gets to the point where you're being used. Again, everybody knows what it feels like to be used, right? Give you an example. You're the only person in your immediate family, right, that has a car. As an example, it's close to home. But you're the only person in your immediate family that has a car. And everybody runs to you and turns to you because, you're the one with a car, right? It makes you useful. But that right there can easily, not toe, not cross, but jump the line to being used, right? Been there before. Whereas if you have a particular skill, right, there's a little more room, to where your usefulness can blossom into, some sort of, purpose or fulfilling usefulness. But you could also feel used. I'll give you another example, right? My cousin, he's a barber, dope ass barber, who I go to have for the past 15 years, ever since he started cutting hair. I don't think I've had my hair cut by anybody else that I can think of. So for 15 years, I've gone to the same person as my cousin, right? And he has a skill. He is very good at what he does. He has put a lot of time and effort into crafting his skill, his art, right? It's now his business, right? That is, that might not be his purpose necessarily, but he's useful in a fulfilling way, right? He provides haircuts. Every man knows that when you get a good haircut, like you feel good, right? Like you look good, you feel good. You looking at yourself in your mirror a little too much. You don't mind when your front camera pop open on your phone when you turn it on. Like, hey, it feels good when you get that fresh cut, right? So he's providing a service, right? He uses his skill to be useful in a what I would call a fulfilling way, right? Because he's providing emotional value, right? He's not just useful. He's providing emotional value because it feels good. But it can also toe the line, right? If you let it. Using the same example. Trying to be as discreet as possible when I give this example, right? When it comes to family, certain close acquaintances, or whatever the case, right? They can easily expect him to want to cut their hair, just because he has that skill, right? I've literally heard people say, he could have cut my hair. Okay, I'm trying. Like I said, I'm trying to give this example without. You know what? Fuck it. So, Jesus Christ. Okay, he'll come by, right, and cut my grandfather's hair, right? My grandfather is 80 something. I'm not sure, but he's in his 80s, right? He's in his 80s, mostly confined to the house. Doesn't really get to go anywhere, right? So we have a barber in the family. My cousin, he comes by and he cuts my granddad's hair, right? Great that he does that. You spend time with your granddad. It's good. Like I said, it's good that he does that. Here's the problem: when you got other family members that think just because he's there cutting his grandfather's hair, that he should take the time to cut other people's hair as well, right? And see, that's where the usefulness comes into play, right? Because first of all, like I said, he runs a business. He has a location, and he has a process for booking his services and his time, right? So if you truly valued what he does, right, you would follow his process, not trying to get him to provide his services to you on your terms, right? That's treating someone like, they're useful, right, and not valuable. Okay, so that's where you kind of toe the line a little bit between feeling useful, or let's call it the usefulness line, right? It's where you toe the usefulness line. If somebody values you, right, then it's fulfilling usefulness. But if you're only being used, right, then that's exactly what it is, just being used. And in that scenario I just gave, right, that's more so, I just need you to be useful. I don't necessarily value what you do. So, anyway, I say all that to say this. When it comes to figuring out your purpose, figuring out what you are put on this earth for, that's one of the things that you think of. It's like, okay, in what ways am I useful to people? In what ways have I been useful to people? And it really led me to think, like, in what ways have I or what are some scenarios that I have fantasized about, right, as far as being useful? Because I don't know about anybody else, but that happens with me. I will literally fantasize ways to where I'm actually providing value, being useful, making a difference. I've literally fantasized these things, right? So I've gone back, or at least, one of the things I'm doing, let's say that, is going back and thinking, taking mental notes. In what ways, in what areas, and about what subjects, what things have you fantasized about, where in those fantasies you have been useful, right? Again, in a fulfilling way. what are the things that you have fantasized about? So going back to when I was doing music, right? Thought music was my purpose, or at least at the time, music was my purpose. Let's say that music was my purpose, right? Getting my name out there, with getting the name Young Prof, bringing prestige to the name Young Prof through my music was the purpose, right? So during that time, I would literally fantasize. I would fantasize myself on stage in front of thousands of people, and I am being useful by entertaining these people, by making these people feel good about themselves based off of my lyrics, right? Giving these people a good feeling based off of the sound of my voice, the sound of the music, that was behind my voice and my lyrics, right? I would fantasize about this. And that's one way that I would fantasize about being useful. Same thing with photography. I would fantasize about providing a life-changing experience using my camera, right? Helping someone see themselves in a different way based off of the image that they see of themselves in my camera, right? Me setting up an image for them, or like setting up a scene to capture this one image so they can see themselves in that image and feel better about themselves, right? That's one way that I fantasized about being useful, right? I would fantasize about, different ways I can set up my area for it to be useful. And that's probably the deepest that I've fantasized and that I've done is around photography, right? And so now it comes to some of the other things that I've really been considering pursuing, right? And as I'm thinking about this, this idea of, fantasizing about being useful, a lot of these ideas that I have, they sound good. Logically, they sound good, but I have a hard time seeing the possibilities of those ventures, right? So it's hard for me to get into. But when it came to music, when it came to photography, and a lot of the other things that I have tried, and writing my book, right? Actually, I fantasized, right, having a completed book, and I completed a book, right? And so I say all that to say this: don't run away from the idea of fantasizing as you get older. I can tell you for myself, as I've gotten older, as I've gotten more logical, I've gotten a little more reasonable to a fault. And I remember being younger and having these fantasies, having these dreams, whether it was music, whether it was photography, and none of it was reasonable. None of it was reasonable. And those things I actually pursue. I actually, you know, put feet to the pavement and actually made something happen with those things, right? Because I didn't allow myself to be reasonable about it. I allow myself to fantasize about it. I fantasize um, certain outcomes, you know, um, with people, right? Certain outcomes just in life in general, and these things have come true, right? Maybe not the way I pictured it, but in many ways, a lot of the things that I have fantasized about have come to pass. So, again, I say all of this to say, whatever your, if, and that's one thing I've heard someone say is that if you don't know what your purpose is, then your purpose is to find your purpose. So, that's currently my purpose, is to find my purpose. Um, but again, I just wanted to have this talk to really analyze the correlation between what you fantasize about and what ultimately becomes, your purpose in life. Because I truly believe that the two are integrated. The two, you know, concepts really matter to each other. The things that you fantasize about and what ultimately becomes your purpose in life. So think about what it is you are fantasizing about. Um, Chances are that is probably your purpose. Chances are that is probably something that you need to maybe not pursue, but something you need to consider in your pursuit of purpose. All right. So, nice little talk. Good to be back in front of the camera. It really is. Just sharing these thoughts. Hopefully, this helped you out. It always helps me out a lot. It's like therapy for me. So, feel a lot better. About to return some Amazon shit real quick. So, talk to you next time.